Hello everyone. Today I would like to share with you it's getting forever amen.
Thank you so much for tuning in. You can use these chapters to skip through any section of the video. We all know that the brush tool can paint, but did you know that if you hold the shift key and try to draw a line, it draws straight lines, no matter how squiggly you get. If you start brushing and then hold the shift key and try to draw a horizontal or a vertical line, it does it perfectly. But do keep in mind it only does horizontal and vertical lines. However, at point B, it makes a straight line throughout. Also, if you keep holding the shift key and then just dab, it creates connected lines. This is not just limited to the brush tool. Any tool that is brush based, you can apply it. Let's say in this image, there are some distractions we need to get rid of. There is this line right here. So even with the remove tool, which is just like a brush, you can just dab on one end. You want to make sure remove after each stroke is unchecked so that you can work with it. And then hold the shift key, dab on the other end. Now you have a straight line. Let's apply it by pressing this button, and there you go. It looks perfect. In the real world that we live in, a brush tool can just paint, but in Photoshop, be a lot of things. It can be scissors to cut out stuff. So here we have a new background. Let's turn it on. On top of that, we have our subject masked out. As you can see, the mask is not perfect. If you zoom in right here, this area, it didn't get it right using select subject. So if we select the mask, pick the brush right here, we can make the brush a little smaller and just paint this area in black to hide it. As simple as that. Let us choose a soft round brush and then let's hide this area. See, we are cutting out stuff with the brush tool. Similarly, we can bring things back. We learned it in the masking lesson, which you can watch right here. You can go to this area. It didn't get the bag right, so we can paint in white. So you can press X to toggle between the foreground and the background colors. White shows and black hides, remember? And you can just simply bring it back. No big deal. So we are doing cutouts using the brush tool. So the brush tool can also be a chemical that creates effects. So here we have the brush tool selected. If we change the blend mode of the brush to difference right here and choose white as the foreground color. Now the difference between white and white is what? Black, because there is no difference. We painted it. Nothing out of the ordinary. Let's paint over it again. It's painting the difference. Let's paint over it again. And you keep on painting to create some wonderful, wonderful effects. And you can use this possibly as a background if you wish to. You can also experiment with different colors. So right now, this is what we get. And then you can change the color to something like red and paint over it to create some fantastic effects. You can try different brushes and you can also use it as a background, which we have covered in this video. You can also use the brush tools for advanced techniques. So here we have just a simple gray layer. We changed its blend mode to soft lights, painted some areas with white and some areas with black. That's just it. But have a look at the result. Here is the before and here is the after, all with the brush tool. So as you saw, the brush tool in Photoshop is not just merely for painting. It can be many things. And in this lesson, you will learn how the brush tool works and how can you make the most of it so that you can apply it all throughout everything that you do in Photoshop. And by the end of this video, you're going to be a master. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before we start, the most important reminder, the shortcut to the brush tool is B. B for brush. That's how you remember it. Any tool you're in, if you want to get back to the brush tool, you press B. Or you can select the brush tool from right here. Up to you. Now, before we delve deep into the magic of brushes, let us do some housekeeping. First of all, when you do select the brush tool, you will get the option of brushes right here. Inside of this, you will have different groups, which if you open, you'll find different kinds of brushes. If you don't see any of this, let me share with you how to reset it. First of all, let me delete all of these. All right. So now I don't have my default brushes. By the way, these are the brushes that I created and installed. All you have to do is to click on the gear icon right there and then click on append default brushes. Hit OK and all your default brushes will show up if they were not showing up already, and that is general dry wet special effects. I'm going to bring these at the bottom so default is at the top. Sometimes when you're brushing, you might wonder, where did my circle go? So right now the circle is showing up, but it's gone. Where did that go? By the way, when you're working with brushes, you want to make sure that if you have worked with blend modes before, you change it back to normal. Otherwise, weird stuff will happen. So right now, my brush has changed to a crosshair. I want the regular version back. Just make sure that your caps lock is not activated. Once you turn off caps lock, see, you have the regular brush back. Now there is a purpose for this, which we will cover later in the video. Now when you do pick your brushes and you do want to see the brush tip, you can turn it on right now. You see how the brushes would paint if you paint it this way. You can go to the settings and then you can check brush tip. It will also show you the tip of the brush, which basically means what would the brush paint like if you just dab like this. That's the brush tip. So first of all, let's talk about the four fundamental properties of a brush. The first one being size. So how do you control the size of the brush? If you're getting paid by the hour, click here, and then you can control the size using this slider. But if you want to work quicker, there are a couple of shortcuts. The first one is using bracket keys. So right bracket key to make it larger and the left bracket key to make it smaller. By the way, I do recommend changing your shortcuts from the bracket keys to W and E if you don't have any use for W and E in Photoshop. That way, you don't have to lift your
Just the
hand
thing.
and go to the other section of the keyboard. Usually, our hand is on the left hand side so that we can press Control or Command Z, Control or Command C, Control or Command V, Shift, and all of that. Everything is on the left hand side. So it's more convenient to change your brush size shortcuts to W and E so that you don't have to lift your hand and do the whole thing over and over again. So how do you do that? You go to Edit and then Keyboard Shortcuts. Click on this drop down. Scroll down, you will find a shortcut for decrease brush size. There you go, decrease brush size. By default, it would be bracket keys, this one and this one, right? You just have to click on it and change it to W, press W,